Alright, I'm gradually putting the front of the motor together. I'll put this water housing on. I've got the thermostat somewhere I've got to find. There was an original one in a new box, so I've got. So when I find that, I'll pop that in, and then pop the top neck on. So I've just got to find that. Water pump. I had quite a few water pumps, but being in Australia, heat is always a problem, and English cars are not known for their fantastic cooling. So I've had this one rebuilt by Bell's Engineering, so very good job. Everything's been cleaned up, new plate on the back, which on my original was a little bit rusted on the inside, so wasn't actually providing a nice neat clearance with the impeller. So that's all been done, all been cleaned up, and new bolts and everything provided with it. So I'm about to put that on. Comes with a gasket, so just comes ready to bolt on. So I'm pleased with that. That should assist with the cooling. The other thing I'm doing with the cooling on this is I'm actually putting an electric fan at the front of the radiator, so I'm doing that as well. I'll leave the original fan on, but I'll provide an electric fan which I can operate manually from inside the cab. So anyway, I'll just put this on now. Won't take long. I've got the bolts, found the bolts, cleaned them up, and I'll just bolt it up. Starting to bolt up all the coolant side, the pump, the housing, where the water temperature sensor goes. Just having a bit of a problem with that. I can't get an adapter to fit the sensor, or certainly not with the current supply problems. So I might initially put an in-hose sensor. Not really the right position, but it'll have to do, and then I'll have to find some way of blocking that off. Continuing on, I'm going to start putting the radiator mount and radiator on. This wasn't on when I got this car, so I should have all the pieces. I've got a bag of bolts that I've sorted out. The radiator itself, this one here, this is one I had record 27 years ago at least, so it's not out of the 1949, it's out of a 1950. So the radiator's fine. The shroud there, I've got that. One thing I don't have is a fan belt yet. I'll have to order that. Hopefully I can get that on after I've put everything together, but I'll wait and see. If it looks like it's too tight to get the belt on, with the shroud and everything in place, I might wait. Although if I don't tighten it up, I can probably rock this forward to get that on. So as long as I don't put the top radiator hose on. Anyway, I'll work through that. So at this stage I've got the pieces together. It's now a case of bolting them on. Now it was my intention to actually mount the radiator on the chassis, so I could connect everything up and possibly start the motor. But as I've started to pull the pieces together, I realise that I actually won't be able to do that unless I actually mount the sides of the engine bay to the frame here. So what you've got to do is to fix all this frame into position and the radiator goes in afterwards. So all I'm doing at this stage is collecting all the pieces that I need to collect and working out whether I've got everything necessary to actually mount this frame in its right position. Now this top piece, I don't know what I can pull out one-handed. Anyway, that just comes up. So that with that up, it enables you to drop the radiator in. So I'm hoping once I set this frame into the right position, and as I say, to do that I've got to make sure I've got the sides of the engine bay in the correct position, and I probably need to I won't be able to put the radiator in with that in position. It's got to be moved out of the way, and so there's a few things I've got to do. And first of all, just to make sure I've got everything necessary to mount this frame. Secondly, what I've got to do is that I am putting a thermo fan in on this one here, which will sit just below this bracket here. So what I've got to do is work out exactly where that's got to mount on the radiator, and also work out whether I can slide this radiator in with this already fitted. I don't know whether that's going to work, so I'm going to have to do a bit of trial fitting. So step one, mount this in the right position, and then see if I can actually feed the radiator in with the fan in position. So there's quite a few things to do. You know, not having seen this in its completed form, I guess I wrongly assumed that you could mount the radiator and then bolt everything on. Well, that's not the case, because everything at the front here needs to be bolted on, including the chrome surround. It needs to be bolted to the frame, and then the radiator is dropped in behind it. Well, that's what I think it is at this stage. So, as I say, I just need to gather up all the pieces. I've found a few brackets, these ones here, which will mount onto the radiator support somewhere here. They'll help mount the side panels. That's them there. So there's a bit of trial and error at this stage. I think I've got all the pieces around here. I've got sufficient bolts. I've got these stays, which will give me the basic location of where this needs to be. So there's a few things to sort out, but I've got a feeling I won't be able to just put the radiator in, which I originally intended to do, and be able to start the motor up without all this in place. I mean, I could, but it would mean connecting the radiator up, filling with coolant, and then when the engine's running and finished, then pulling it all apart again. I don't really want to do that. So anyway, just a change in plans. I'm pretty sure I've got all the pipes that'll go on here. Managed to gather most of those. Just got a shipment from England that gives me the fan belt, which I didn't have. And I also got a shipment in the other day regarding the sensor, water sensor location. Now, I couldn't get an adapter originally. My intention was to put an in hose fitting where I could fit the sensor. I've now managed to get an adapter for that, but what I'm going to have to do, because of the corrosion in the bottom of the thread there won't be a very good seal, so the adapter I've probably got to silver solder in, so I need to look at how that's going to go into place. But the adapter that I've got does fit the thread and it fits the sensor. I've just got to make sure I can get a good seal, so I've got to work on that too. So it'll come together just a bit slower than I anticipated. Now I'm still trying to work out whether I can get the radiator in with a thermo fan on the front. The problem I've encountered is that the lugs on the bottom of the radiator here were fouling the support. Now, I did have this radiator record many years ago. There's a good chance that they, when they put that bracket on the bottom, it was just a bit out of place. So not much, but it's about a 1/16 of an inch. I've tried to tap them in with no success. So the other alternative was to spread the bottom there, which I've done. Didn't have to spread it much, so it was only a 1/16 of an inch out. But what I'm now able to do is to lower the radiator in on an angle, so I don't have to slide it down through here because it still fouls up the top. But if I drop the radiator in and then when it's down to this level, it actually then comes straight back in. So the lugs will clear down here, but they foul a bit up here. But what that means is that I'll be tipping the radiator towards the motor, so there's a good chance I can get the thermo fan to clear this support. So I really can't put the radiator in yet. I think I've said before I've got to actually mount this support. Once I've got the support in the right position, then I'll go back to try and fitting the radiator. I've got the fan belt. Another little problem I encountered there is I just, my own lack of knowledge of how it goes together. I thought the fan belt was too short, but it wasn't. It's the right size. But what I had was I'd mounted the generator so you can't see it here, on the bottom of the generator down there is another bolt hole. I actually had that swung up onto the bracket, which meant that you need a much longer belt. Now, having looked at a few pictures of the motor, I found the missing piece, which is this, which actually goes onto that bolt underneath, and then this comes up and goes onto the bracket there. So I've just got to find the right thread bolt to go into the generator, and then I'll mount that properly. This is another one of those little things that easily forgotten. This is the drain pipe that comes out of the side of the block. This fitting here screws into the block, tapered thread, and this goes down and bolts onto the sump. Now, I was able to find that some time ago, but what was missing was this top fitting here, where the water drains from the inlet manifold. Now, I couldn't find the pipe, well, certainly for quite some time. I did manage to find it finally. Now, that was a steel pipe. It was damaged on one end, and it's also blocked internally. It's certainly not one that I would have reused. So I decided to make another one up out of copper tube, which I've done there. So that's its replacement. The thing that's delayed me fitting is that the olives, compression olives at the end, I couldn't source them. It took me 2 months to get them delivered. They've just arrived, so now I've reached the stage where I can fit this pipe on. It's going to be a little bit fiddly because of the captive nature of the bottom end of this fitting and the top. So I've probably got to bend the pipe a little bit to fit it into both apertures and then tighten it up against the olive. So a little bit fiddly, shouldn't be too bad. I intend to use some thread seal, which I've used before, on the fitting into the block. So I'm hoping that will avoid any leaks. So that is pretty much ready to fit. I've done a trial fit. This replacement appears to be the right length and the right shape. The other thing that I'd forgotten, I guess out of sight, out of mind, is this pipe. Now this is the oil feed pipe to the head. So this one I've actually cleaned up internally, make sure that there's no obstruction, which there isn't. I'll just clean up the external before I fit it, but that's one that has to be fitted to ensure that you've got lubrication to the rockers in the head, so that needs to be bolted on. So little things, you can't afford to miss them, but so at least I found that one, and it's quite serviceable. So I'll fit those up next. Finally connected the drain pipe. Difficult part was this because of the captive nature of it. So I actually had to bend the copper tube to get it to go into the fitting and then tighten it up. So it should be fine. I've used thread lock in or thread seal in the block there, so it should be okay. I've just finished locking it up onto the sump bolt, so that's now done. So this side is pretty well complete. I've probably only got the heater cables to connect on this side, and obviously the air filter, which I'm not going to put on just yet. So that's done. The remaining pipe that I've missed is the oil feed on the other side. So I've just got to find the elbow fitting for the head. When I've got that, then I'll put that pipe on. I managed to find the little union for the head, screwed that in. The pipe's not that difficult to fit, with the exception of the bottom union here. It's very hard to get a spanner into it. I ended up using a brake spanner to nip it up, and it shouldn't need to be nipped up too tight, but hopefully it's tight enough. So that's in. The curly bit goes to the bottom. So that's now complete, which is good. Now this is the adapter I managed to get on the internet. It does screw in there, but probably going to have a bit of difficulty actually sealing. Now I've shot blasted the thread, so it's all clean. I do have some washers on the end to hopefully take up on the surface here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some JB weld in there just to ensure that it seals. So I'll just mix up some now and then I'll screw it in. Well, that's all done. I'll leave that to harden up overnight. Then I'll paint this housing up. Now, this is a spare one I've got, so if this doesn't work I can always go to plan B, which is maybe silver soldering a fitting in, but I'm pretty sure this should work. So I'll leave that overnight and then look at mounting that on the motor. Now this has all been remounted. I haven't locked the sensor in there yet, it's just screwed in loosely. I'll do that when I fit it to the wiring. So it's all ready to go, so that's fine.